Polynomials with missing terms. That'll be more clear what they mean by that in a second. And the reason this blue is over here is because this got cut off. Go ahead and get number 1 set up. So we're going to have a cubed, but I don't like that, so I'm going to write x cubed. But look at this. Do you see how we have a missing term? Right here, it jumps from cubed to the first degree, so we always have to keep an eye out for this. And to keep an eye out for it, we're going to write plus 0 x squared, because that missing term we need to have like a little bit of a placeholder in, because we end up with remainders and stuff like that. Plus 8x minus 24. That's going to be divided by x minus 2. Now, I don't like dealing with a's and things like that, so I go ahead and swap out the x's. Now, unlike the last problems, this goes to a higher degree. So instead I have 4 total terms in here, so it's probably going to be a longer problem. But the procedures here on out, now that we've got this missing term and a placeholder, it's basically the exact same. So what times x can fit into x cubed? Well, that would be x squared. So x squared times x gives me x cubed, and then x squared times negative 2 gives me a minus 2 x squared. I go through, and now I subtract, which changes the sign on that. My x cubes go away, and 0 plus 2 gives me 2x squared plus 8x. And I don't bother writing the minus 24. Okay, so the thing is, we went from having no x squared term to now having a 2x squared term, and that didn't come out of nowhere. That's because that was like a remainder chunk that we had. Okay, let's see. Let's add a 2 here, because 2 times x is going to be giving me that 2x, but I also need an x so that I get that whole 2x squared term. And then now I do 2x times negative 2, and I get a minus 4x. Go through, change the signs on it. So 2x squared minus 2x goes away, and 8x plus 4x becomes 12x. Now I'll bring down that minus 24. And how many times does x fit into 12? So we'll sneak a plus 12 up there. 12 times x gives me 12x. 12 times a negative 2 gives me a negative 24, which means I subtract, which changes the signs, and we're left with no remainder on this problem. And I always prefer that. So go ahead, even though we have our answer finished here, let's go ahead and rewrite it, preferably on the right side of the page. X squared plus 2x plus 12. So if you wanted to, you could also try and factor this and see if you got the same result. Let's try another problem. That should be closed there. So again, I'm not too crazy about different variables other than x with these. So for problem 2, when I set this up, I'm going to go with x to the 4th. And 4th does drop down to 3, meaning this 3 right here for the exponent. And then I see the next thing I would write, and I would write plus 6c. But that's a problem because the exponent on it's 1, so that means I'm missing c to the power of 2. I went back and fixed this, so I'm making sure I'm changing this all to the correct variable. And then I have plus 6x, and if I want I could put a 1 there, minus 10. And there's my big division. So this is getting divided by x plus 2. Well, I wonder, well, what can fit into x to the 4th when I multiply it by x? And that would be x cubed. So x cubed times x gives me x to the fourth. X cubed times 2 gives me 2x cubed. But I'm subtracting these, so I'm going to sneak my minuses in there, which means that those terms go away. But oddly enough, these also go away. So I guess it would be nice to hold a place here. And I'll show you why I'm bringing all that down. So since I'm not trying to fit anything into x cubed because there's nothing happening there, I'm going to have to write plus 0x squared. Well, then I'm wondering, well, what would I fit here that would fit into 0x squared? Well, that would also be nothing. I'm making sure I'm using the correct space here. And now you see why I ended up bothering writing that again. So I'm going to sneak a 6 here, and 6 times x gives me 6x, and 6 times 2 gives me plus a 12. But I'm also going in and subtracting this. So these terms go away, and once I bring down this minus 10, I would have a negative 10 minus 12 gives me negative 22 as a remainder there. So as strange as this one feels, it's probably due to just realizing that, okay, well, we had these two things here that didn't show up. And then I got the 6 here that does show up, so there's a big jump there. And lastly, I'm going to write minus 22 over x to the fourth plus 2x cubed. I don't need to write plus 0x squared here. And that is what would happen with that whole problem. I'm going to clear this out, and I'm just going to remind you that you're dealing with missing terms. So that means there are kind of gaps in these problems. I'm going to undo this, jump back, and just kind of remind you of what happened here. Well, we had to throw that there so that we didn't have a missing spot. When we ended up working this out, parts canceled out or got brought down and didn't even matter. And that's why in our result we ended up with a big gap here of nothing even showing up in our x squared or in our x terms. Okay, probably puts you in a decent spot to put number 3 as an OYO problem. So let's get that one set up. But yeah, go ahead and do this one on your own. You have a 2 out front. It's a little bit different, but not crazy different. With this setup, you're noticing that it does go from 3 to 2 to 1, and then if you thought of it this way, x to the power of 0. So there's nothing missing there. And 2x fits into 6x cubed, 3x squared times. And that means 3x squared times 10 is going to give me 30x squared. We'll take that away. Let me use a different color here just so you can see the signs changing. Bye-bye to that term. And then I'm going to get a negative 14x squared minus 60x. Well, that means that a minus 7 is going to fit in up here. And that negative 7 also is going to have an x with it. So negative 7x times 2x gives me that minus 14x squared I was counting on. Negative 7x times 10 gives me a negative 70x. And since I'm subtracting these, I'm going to change it so that these go away, and then I'm left with 10x, and plus 39 comes down. And the last thing is going to be 5 fitting in there. 5 times 2x gives me 10x. 5 times 10 gives me 50. But since I'm subtracting these, I'll change the sign on that, and I'll be left with a negative 11 down here. So when I go in, I rewrite the whole thing. 3x squared minus 7x plus 5 minus 11. I'll box my answer just so it doesn't overlap with that part there. And then I'm going to write 6x cubed plus 16x squared minus 60x plus 39. I think you can figure out what that says. I think you're okay there. Yeah, not really a missing term here, but you did have this 2x show up, so that was a little bit more different from some of the other things you saw. So the assignment for this should be at the back of the notes, and hopefully these missing terms ones feel good too.